August 7th, 1944. Somewhere in northern France. 02:16 p.m. The road is quiet. Too quiet. A column of German vehicles stretches along a narrow countryside path. Half-tracks, trucks. One Panzer V near the center. Engines idle low. They're waiting. Obergefreiter Karl Weiss leans against the side of the tank, wiping sweat from his forehead. The sun is high. Bright. Too bright. Why are we stopped? A driver asks from one of the trucks. Weiss doesn't answer immediately. Because everyone already knows. They're waiting for clouds. Waiting for the sky to change. Because right now, the sky is clear. And that makes them visible. A soldier nearby mutters, "This is ridiculous. We're just sitting here." Weiss glances upward. "No," he says quietly. "We're surviving." Silence follows. Because that difference matters now. Before, movement meant progress, speed, momentum. Now, movement means exposure. And exposure means something else entirely. Weiss looks down the road. The column stretches far beyond what he can see. Too long. Too dense. A perfect target. He knows it. Everyone does. That's why they're not moving. Because once they move, they can be seen. And once they are seen, a distant sound cuts through the air. Low, faint, but unmistakable. Weiss freezes. So does everyone else. Engines cut instantly. No orders needed. They've learned this. The sound grows louder. Fast. Aircraft. "Get off the road," someone shouts. Panic spreads instantly. Drivers jump from vehicles. Soldiers scatter toward ditches and tree lines. The tank crew scrambles, abandoning position. Because the tank is no longer protection. It's a target. The sound becomes a roar. Then they appear. American fighter bombers. Low, fast. Already aligned. Already attacking. The first strafing run hits the front of the column. Machine gun fire tears through trucks. Fuel ignites instantly. Explosions ripple down the road. Weiss dives into a shallow ditch, pressing his face into the dirt. The aircraft pass overhead, gone in seconds. Then circle back. They always come back. Another pass. This time, rockets. The Panzer T takes a direct hit. The explosion is immediate. No chance. No defense. Just destruction. Weiss doesn't look up. He doesn't need to. He can feel it. The heat. The shock wave. The realization. This isn't a battle. This is a hunt. The aircraft climb briefly, then dive again. Precise. Controlled. Every vehicle hit. Every movement punished. Because the target isn't resistance. The target is existence. If it's there, it's destroyed. The attacks continue for less than a minute. Then, silence. Just like that, the aircraft disappear into the distance, leaving behind smoke, fire, wreckage. Weiss lifts his head slowly. The road is gone. Not physically, but functionally. It no longer exists as a path, only as a graveyard. Burning vehicles line both sides. Nothing moving. Nothing left to move. A soldier crawls beside him, shaken. "They came out of nowhere," he whispers. Weiss stares ahead. No, not nowhere. From above. Always from above. And that's the problem. You can defend against what you see. But how do you defend against something that sees you first? Weiss looks up at the empty sky, clear again, beautiful and deadly. Because now he understands something clearly. The danger isn't when the planes are there. It's that they can come at any moment, without warning, without delay. And when they do, there is nothing you can do. The vehicles that once gave them strength now give them away. The roads that once gave them speed now trap them. Everything that once meant advantage now means risk. Weiss exhales slowly, because something has changed. Not on the battlefield, in the mind. A shift from confidence to caution, from movement to hesitation. Because now, every decision starts with one question. What if they see us? And if that question is always there, then you are never truly free to act. And if you cannot act, you cannot win. Weiss looks back at what remains of the column, then back at the sky, and for the first time, he understands why they fear it. Not because of what it is, but because of what it does. It takes control away. Completely. And once control is gone, everything else follows. The road is abandoned. August 7th, 1944. The smoke still rises. Not thick. Not blinding. Just enough to remind them what happened. Weiss moves carefully along the edge of a tree line, stepping over debris, avoiding the road completely now. No one walks on the open ground anymore. That lesson didn't take long. Behind him, what remains of the unit spreads out, not in formation, in fragments. Each man choosing his own path, because grouping together means being seen, and being seen means being hit. A soldier whispers, "We should move before dark." Weiss stops. Before dark. He shakes his head slowly. "No," he says. "We move after dark. That's the new rule. Not written. Not ordered. Learned. The battlefield has changed. Daylight is no longer an advantage. It's a threat." Weiss crouches behind a cluster of trees, scanning the open field ahead. Nothing. But that doesn't mean anything. Because now, the enemy doesn't need to be visible to be present. The presence is above. Invisible until it isn't. A distant rumble echoes faintly. Weiss freezes. Every muscle tight. Listening. It fades. Not aircraft. Just artillery. But even that feels different now. Because everything connects back to the same thought. The sky. A soldier beside him speaks quietly. "We used to worry about tanks." Weiss nods. Because tanks were predictable. Visible. You could hear them. See them. Prepare for them. Engage them. Fight them. But aircraft are different. They don't announce themselves until it's too late. They don't approach on a line. They appear and disappear. And in that short window, they decide everything. Weiss looks out again. The open field stretches ahead. A perfect route. A fast way forward. And completely unusable. Because crossing it in daylight is suicide. That realization spreads through the unit. Not spoken. Felt. A soldier starts to move forward instinctively. Weiss grabs his arm. Wait. The soldier looks confused. There's nothing out there. Weiss glances upward. That's the problem. Nothing visible, which means everything is possible. They wait. Minutes pass. Nothing happens. The silence returns. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Because now, silence doesn't feel safe. It feels temporary. A soldier mutters. "How do they even find us?" Weiss doesn't answer. Because the answer doesn't change anything. Observation aircraft, forward air controllers, radio coordination, all of it working together. A system. Faster than anything they can respond to. And that system turns daylight into exposure. A vehicle engine starts somewhere behind them. Weiss turns sharply. Too loud. Too sudden. "Shut it off," he shouts. But it's too late. The sound echoes. Carries. A signal. Moments later, that sound again. This time unmistakable. Aircraft. Closer. Faster. The soldiers drop instantly. No hesitation. No confusion. Because now, they know. The planes sweep overhead. Low. Searching. Hunting. The engine noise stops. The vehicle sits still. But that doesn't matter. Because it was already heard. Already noticed. The first strafing run hits seconds later. Precise. The vehicle explodes instantly. Flames rise into the air. The soldiers remain hidden. Silent. Still. Because movement now is the real target. The aircraft circle once more. Looking. Waiting for anything that moves. But nothing does. Not anymore. Weiss doesn't breathe. Doesn't move. Because now, survival depends on one thing. Becoming invisible. The planes pass. Then leave. The silence returns again. But it feels heavier. More final. Because now, the rule is clear. Daylight belongs to them. Not to the soldiers on the ground. Not to the ones trying to move. Not to the ones trying to fight. Only to the ones above. Weiss slowly lifts his head. The sky is empty again. But it doesn't feel empty. It feels controlled. Dominated. Owned. And that realization spreads deeper. Because once you lose the sky, you lose freedom. Freedom to move. Freedom to act. Freedom to fight. And without that, you are no longer in control of the battlefield. You are reacting to it. And reacting is always too late. Weiss leans back against the tree, closing his eyes briefly. Because now, something else is forming. Not fear. Not panic. Understanding. The tanks can be fought. Artillery can be avoided. But air power changes everything. Because it doesn't just attack you. It controls when you can exist. And when you can't. August 9th, 1944. Rural crossroads, Western France. 11:22 a.m. The convoy doesn't look like a convoy anymore. It looks like fragments. A truck here. A half-track there. A tank hidden beneath a thin line of trees. Spacing. Distance. Everything spread out. Because staying together is no longer an option. Obergefreiter Karl Weiss walks alongside a fuel truck, keeping to the shadow of the trees. No one uses the road openly now. They move parallel to it. Hidden. Or at least, trying to be. Keep distance. An NCO calls out quietly. No shouting. No signals. Everything is reduced. Because sound travels. And anything that travels can be found. The convoy inches forward. Slow. Painfully slow. Because speed attracts attention. And attention brings aircraft. Weiss glances up briefly. Clear sky. Too clear. That's when it's worst. A soldier behind him whispers, "This is pointless. We'll never get through like this." Weiss doesn't respond. Because he knows. They're not moving to advance. They're moving to survive. And survival is measured in minutes now. Not distance. The truck ahead stops suddenly. Weiss freezes. "Why are we stopping?" someone asks. No answer. Just tension. Then, the sound. Faint. But enough. Every soldier drops instantly. No command. No hesitation. They've learned this pattern too well. The aircraft appear moments later. Low. Fast. already aligned with the road. Because the road is predictable, and predictability is weakness. The first strafing run tears through the front vehicle. Fuel ignites. The explosion sends flames high into the air. A signal. Now everything is visible. The second pass hits further back. The spacing didn't matter. The hiding didn't matter. Because the moment one vehicle was hit, the entire area became a target. Weiss presses himself into the ground, heart pounding. The noise is overwhelming. Engines screaming. Machine guns firing. Explosions echoing. But through all of it, there's a pattern. Every pass, every strike, is deliberate. No wasted movement. No random fire. Everything aimed. Everything controlled. The aircraft pull up, circle again. Looking. Not for vehicles now. For movement. Because movement reveals everything. A soldier panics. Runs. Just a few steps. It's enough. The next pass finds him instantly. Gone. Weiss closes his eyes briefly. Because now, the lesson is absolute. Do not move. Not even to survive. The attacks continue. Short. Precise. Then, they stop. The aircraft disappear once more. And again. Silence. But this silence is different. Heavier. Because now, the pattern is complete. Movement leads to detection. Detection leads to destruction. No exceptions. Weiss slowly lifts his head. The convoy is gone. Not scattered. Destroyed. What remains burns quietly. The spacing didn't help. The hiding didn't help. The caution didn't help. Because the problem isn't how they move. It's that they move at all. A soldier crawls toward him, shaking. "We can't move like this," he says. Weiss looks at him. Then at the road. Then at the sky. "No," he says quietly. "We can't move." That's the truth now. Not exaggerated. Not emotional. Practical. Movement is no longer an advantage. It's a liability. And that changes everything. Because armies rely on movement. Supplies. Reinforcements. Strategy. All of it depends on moving. And if movement is punished, then everything slows. Then everything weakens. Then everything breaks. Back in the distance, more engine sounds. Another convoy. Another group trying to move. Weiss doesn't look. Because he already knows what will happen. And that knowledge is the most dangerous part. Because once you know the outcome before it happens, you stop believing you can change it. And when belief disappears, so does resistance. Weiss exhales slowly. Because now, the fear isn't about being attacked. It's about inevitability. That no matter what they do, the result is the same. And if that's true, then the battlefield is no longer contested. It's controlled. And it doesn't belong to them anymore. August 11th, 1944. Woodline, near a destroyed village. The tank is still. Engine off. Camouflaged with branches and mud. Hidden beneath the edge of a tree line. It looks safe. It feels safe. But no one inside believes that anymore. Obergefreiter Karl Weiss sits beside the hull of a Panther tank, running his hand along the cold steel. This used to mean something. Protection. Power. Control. The kind of machine that could dominate a battlefield. Now, it feels like a trap. Inside the turret, the crew waits. Not scanning for targets. Listening. Because now, threats don't come from the front. They come from above. A crewman whispers. "We should move before dark." Weiss shakes his head. No movement in daylight. The rule is absolute now, not from command, from experience. Because tanks draw attention. Large, visible, important, perfect targets. Weiss steps back, looking at the vehicle. Weeks ago, this tank would have led an advance. Now, it hides, avoids, survives. That shift is everything. Because tanks are not meant to hide. They are meant to move. And if they can't move, they lose their purpose. A distant rumble echoes. Weiss freezes. Every soldier nearby does the same. The sound grows. Familiar. Feared. Aircraft. Stay still. Weiss whispers. No one moves. No one breathes. Because now, stillness is the only defense left. The aircraft appear moments later. 2 of them. Low. Circling. Searching. Not rushing. Because they don't need to. They know something is here. The tank crew inside remains silent. Engine off. No movement. Hoping. That's all it is now. Hope. The aircraft pass once. Then again. Slower this time. More focused. Weiss watches from beneath the trees. Heart pounding. Because this moment feels different. Not random. Deliberate. Then, one aircraft tilts slightly. Adjusts. Locks in. Weiss's stomach drops. They see it. He whispers. Too late. The rockets fire. A direct hit. The explosion rips through the tank instantly. No chance. No defense. Just destruction. The vehicle that once defined power, destroyed in seconds. Weiss flinches, turning away from the blast. The second aircraft strafes the surrounding area, ensuring nothing survives, ensuring nothing remains. Then, they're gone. Just like that. The silence returns. But it feels heavier than before. Because now, something deeper has changed. Weiss looks at the burning wreck. At what used to be protection. At what used to give them confidence. And now, gives them away. A soldier nearby speaks quietly. If tanks aren't safe, he doesn't finish. He doesn't need to. Because everyone understands. If the strongest thing on the battlefield can be destroyed this easily, then nothing is safe. Nothing. Weiss kneels slowly, staring at the ground. Because this is the moment, the shift, the realization, not forming, not growing, complete. The enemy doesn't need to outfight them. They don't need to outmaneuver them. They just need to find them. And once found, everything ends the same way. That's the difference. Ground combat has variables, choices, outcomes. Air power removes them, replaces them with certainty. Weiss exhales slowly, because now the fear is no longer about being attacked. It's about being seen, because being seen means being destroyed. And once that becomes true, the battlefield changes completely. Because war is no longer about strength. It's about visibility. And visibility belongs to the sky. August 14th, 1944. Near the German border. 11 p.m. The sun is going down. Finally, the light fades slowly across the horizon, turning the sky from gold to gray. And with it, something returns. Movement. Obergefreiter Karl Weiss walks beside a small group of soldiers along a narrow path, barely visible in the growing darkness. No engines. No vehicles. Only footsteps. Because now, this is how they move. Not as an army, but as shadows. A soldier whispers, "We can move now." Weiss nods. Night is the only time left. The only window where the sky doesn't see. Where the war feels almost normal. But even that is changing. Because the fear doesn't disappear with the light. It stays. In the mind. Every step forward feels temporary. Because morning always comes. And with it, the sky. They reach a small clearing. Pause. Listen. Nothing. For now. A soldier looks up. Dark sky. No aircraft. Feels different at night, he says quietly. Weiss doesn't answer. Because he knows the truth. It's not different. It just feels that way. Because during the day, they learned something. Something that doesn't go away when the sun sets. That the battlefield is no longer controlled from the ground. It's controlled from above. And that changes everything. Back at a temporary command position, officers gather around a map. But the discussion is different now. No talk of armored advances. No talk of pushing forward. Only one concern. When can we move? Not where. Not how. When. Because timing is now everything. And timing is dictated by the sky. A report comes in. Daytime movement results in heavy losses. No surprise. Another report. Night movement possible, but limited. Limited. Because even the night is no longer fully safe. Aircraft patrols. Flares. Random strikes. The advantage is fading. Just slower than the day. Back on the path, Weiss continues forward. He doesn't look up anymore. He doesn't need to. Because he already knows what's there. Or what could be there. That's enough. A soldier beside him asks quietly, "Do you think we can win like this?" Weiss keeps walking. For a moment, he says nothing. Because this question would have had an answer before. Plans. Strategies. Confidence. Now, it has something else. Truth. No, he says. Quiet. Simple. Final. The soldier doesn't react. Because he already knew. They all do. That's the shift. Not in tactics. In understanding. The realization has spread. From one unit. To another. To all. That the enemy doesn't just fight them. The enemy controls them. Controls when they move. When they hide. When they survive. And when they don't. That's what air power does. It doesn't just destroy. It dominates. Completely. Weiss stops for a moment, looking back toward the direction they came from. Smoke still rises faintly in the distance. From roads they can't use. From vehicles they can't move. From positions they can't hold. All of it connected. All of it leading to the same conclusion. That the war is no longer fought on equal terms. That one side acts, and the other reacts. And in war, that difference decides everything. Weiss turns forward again, continuing into the darkness, because that's all that's left. Movement when unseen, survival when unnoticed, waiting for moments where the sky isn't watching. But those moments are getting smaller, shorter, less reliable. And once they disappear completely, there will be nothing left. Because without movement, there is no supply, no reinforcement, no strategy, no war, just survival. Weiss walks in silence. Because now, the truth is clear. They don't fear tanks. They don't fear infantry. They don't even fear artillery. They fear something else. Something they cannot fight. Something they cannot see coming. Something that decides everything before the battle even begins. The sky. And once the sky belongs to the enemy, the war belongs to them too.